Hi, Tessa.
Hello.
Tessa, we've got your first question. What time is it for you?
It is 2 minutes to 7 in the morning, and that's why I look so alert.
Yeah, you got a round of applause. I don't know if you heard that, Tessa. There was that round of applause of awesomeness. Bearing in mind what you had to go through earlier.
Right, just before we start this session, when this session breaks out in the tea area, there will be an announcement from the committee about the new committee, the fact that they co-opted some new members to join them, and who they've elected as officers for the coming year. We'd normally do it now, but we haven't got a plenary session, so we're going to bring both groups together just in the tea area, and the chairman will report on the situation, which is quite healthy, so thank you.
Well, that's a bit of a teaser to stay around, isn't it?
Right then, everybody, I think we're ready to recommence for our afternoon session, and it's my pleasure to reintroduce to you Tessa Keough, who was part of our panel earlier on. Tessa is known to me as someone who is incredibly generous with both her knowledge and her time. And although she's talking about webinars and what is available, she, as many of you will know, is responsible for herself for putting out there for us to use information that can help us with our research. So if anyone's seen the 20 with Tessa tips that you will find, they really are incredibly useful. Tessa is also a regional rep in the US. She's done a great deal to raise the profile of the Guild over the other side of the big pond that we call the Atlantic. And she's here today to talk to us, and the title is Tools and Techniques, Webinars, What is Available, and How Do I Participate? So I'd like you to give a round of applause. Tessa, particularly, as it's 7 o'clock in the morning for her.
Okay. Great, and I believe that what I'm supposed to do right now is share my screen so that you can actually see the. So hopefully that brings it up. And is Bob in the room, and has he blue boxed it so that it stays there? I'm not hearing anything on your end.
Hello, can you hear us? We can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure of that. So this has been blue boxed, so it's not moving around. It stays on my slide presentation, right?
Right, you're all good to go.
Okay, great. So I'm going to get started. Well, I was going to say good afternoon, but you all have realized that it's 7 a.m. in the morning here for me. But in any event, thanks for joining me today. And the title of my talk is a little different. It's Webinars and More, Using Online Learning Resources with Your One Name Study. Because although webinars are one of the great resources, there are a couple other things that are along those same lines with online learning that I thought that we could talk about. Now, as you know, my name's Tessa Keough, and I'm coming to you today through the magic of internet, the good graces of Google Plus Hangouts, and the technological know-how and dedication of Bob Cumberbatch. Since this is being done at a distance, if you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and take them at the end. And then I also want you to know that you can email me with your questions, because I'll post a summary of any questions and answers. I'm guessing if you have a question, someone else might who's watching. And I'll put them at the YouTube recording of this presentation so people can follow along. Now, if everything goes according to plan and it looks like it's working, you're actually attending a webinar, which is simply a seminar or workshop that's delivered over the internet, all from the comfort of the Forest Pines Hotel, while I'm presenting from Portland, Oregon, which is in the United States. And that's a physical distance of over 4,800 miles, a time zone distance of 7 hours, and thankfully not a $950 plane ticket. Now, my first question to all of you is, how many of you use online learning opportunities? And I can see some of you, so if we have a show of hands, that would be great. And this could be tutorials, videos, webinars, hangouts, or any kinds of courses. Now, the reason that I ask is because I watched Bob Cumberbatch's presentation from 2014 Guild Conference, where he discussed 10 tools to use with your One Name studies. And I was really surprised when the show of hands for each of the tools that he showed brought back only about 10% of the attendees who'd either heard of the tool or were using it. And I have a sneaking suspicion that we might have that same response to the question that I just asked. And since that's a good possibility, before we discuss where to find and how to use those online learning opportunities, I thought we'd take a quick step back. Now, many of you in the room today have been working on your One Name study far longer than I have. You've gathered tremendous amounts of data and perhaps published articles or books about your One Name study. Some of you are just starting out, and you might be feeling a bit overwhelmed or wondering about the nuts and bolts, as well as how to add depth or value to your One Name study, especially in light of all those online trees we're seeing. And some others of you might have taken a break from your One Name study, and you're just now getting back to it. If you've been away for a while, things have definitely changed. Resources, social media, and technology, just to name a few areas. You might be wondering how to get back to your One Name study. Now, whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced One Name researcher, someone who works on your study every day, all day, or somebody who only works on it once or twice a month, none of us knows it all, and we can all benefit by continuing our education. With the internet and all the resources at our disposal 24/7, we have the ability to be lifelong learners. Now, we're going to take a look at a variety of online learning resources that are available, and that's why this presentation is actually called Webinars and More. I've put together a resources handout that provides a number of links to the various types of online learning opportunities, and that's going to be posted at the Guild website, and it's going to be attached as a link to the YouTube channel video within the next week once those go up. Now, everyone here today is a family historian, and most of you are One Name researchers, unless you got dragged here by your significant other, and I'm going to try and grab their attention so you can make a quick escape and perhaps get in some golf. Now, most One Name researchers I've met, we tend to enjoy learning, whether that's to build our knowledge, whether that's to increase our skills, or solve some of those difficult questions we have about our surnames. Unless you have unlimited time and resources, it makes sense to take a look at what you've already done. What types of information have you reviewed, and what courses have you already taken? Have you used any of those materials that you learned from those courses? And do you have any outstanding projects that you want to complete? You really have to answer those questions so you can decide what you want to learn and why, and determine which information sources and which courses will be your best fit. Now, I think sometimes we as family historians and one-name researchers unnecessarily limit ourselves. Rather than focus solely on family history education, what subjects and skills do one-name researchers need to learn and use? Now, my vote for subjects is history. We really need to understand the various changes that take place over time in various countries due to all of those factors. We need to learn geography, both physical and cultural. We need to learn some math because we need that ability to do some of those simple calculations to check our work. Statistics, we need to understand how statistics are arrived at and if they accurately reflect what we intend them to do or what others use them for. And finally, biology. At the point where we introduce genetics and DNA tests into our one-name studies, we want to make sure that we understand it. My vote for skills includes productivity tools. Spreadsheets and relational databases can help us manage and manipulate our data. Basic and intermediate computer skills. We want to get the best use out of our software. Technology tools. Being able to use the internet, an email program, and social media is really necessary in the 21st century. And finally, electronics and gadgets. Knowing how to use your camera, your scanner, your smartphone, a tablet, and an e-reader are a huge assist when we're conducting our studies in the field. Many of these subjects and skills are general knowledge areas, so we need to be on the lookout for all types of online learning. Now, do you have a short-term and a long-term plan for your one-name study? Of course, our plans are going to change over time, but it's important to give some thought to your plans, set your goals down on paper, and then work your plans. If you're new to a one-name study and you want to learn the basics, certain types of online learning would be better for you than others. If you're more advanced and you want to work with technology or a specific subject matter, what areas do you feel you're lacking or do you need to brush up on before you make the attempt? Perhaps you have excellent research skills and you've gathered and analyzed data, but you simply are unable to start compiling your one-name study for publication. You might need to take some remedial or creative writing courses. Take a look at where you are with your one-name study today and where you want to be in 1 year. And perhaps we can all check in with each other at the Guild Conference in 2016 and figure this out. Make an appointment with yourself and give some thought to what you want to do with your one-name study in 2015. If you find any gaps in your knowledge or skills, make a list of the types of online and offline learning that will help you achieve your goals, and then check out the available resources. Now, my plans for 2015 include focusing on Canadian records and resources for my primary surname, and publishing a Keough one-name study website that's going to include the data that I've collected so far about my one-name study. Each of those projects needs very different skills and knowledge. I need to be able to prioritize the projects, look for online learning opportunities that are going to help me with each of them, decide how much time and effort I want to put into the projects, and then plan accordingly. So let's take a quick look at this in action. Now, I like to use mind mapping programs, and this one is called Keough, and I use it because it's free and it's very easy to use. Some of the other ones are really involved. I put together a summary of my Keough one-name study and Guild activities, and I consider this the big picture stuff. And it has a branch for each year from 2009, when I started my one-name study and joined the Guild, through 2016. My map is on my online account, and that simply means it's in the cloud. And it can also be downloaded as a PDF or a JPEG. It can be shared with others, edited, and it's automatically synced and maintained in my Google Drive. And I keep this big picture overview front and center to kind of keep me on track. This is a portion of my 2015 plans in greater detail. The numbers in parentheses show each census in Canada with the total number of instances for my primary surname. And this gives me some idea of the scope of my main research projects, and that's gathering Canadian records. Now, you can include tracks, and that's that dotted line, and that shows that I intend to use Ancestry for my preliminary census research. And those working links in blue, I can easily open right from the map. To take a look at what I'm interested in, they take me directly to that website, so I can refer back to those links whenever I need to. Now, whether you enjoy working with mind maps, and some of you might not, or you prefer to work with a pen and paper or put your fingers to the keyboard, write up your one-name study plans as well as the individual activities or projects that you need to accomplish those plans. Now that we've thought about our short and long-term plans and we've determined our strategy to accomplish our plans, what's next? Ask yourself what you need to learn now. What will help you with your one-name study today and in the near future? The chances are very good that if any of the information being offered today online is there, it's also going to be offered in the future. And at that time, it's going to be updated. So if a topic or information is not important to your work today, attend to it in the future when it is important. So you really need to be a discerning student. Make a decision about that online learning opportunity based on whether it's a good investment of your time and oftentimes money, and whether that investment pays a dividend in usefulness. And this is where an educational log or transcript comes in handy. If you keep track of online learning that you engage in and what your thoughts were about it, you'll have a list of courses, instructors, and topics to keep in mind and to share with others. I originally saw this idea over at Jill Ball's blog, and Jill has a CGD log, and that's short for Continuing Genealogical Development Learning Log, which is quite a mouthful at 7 in the morning. She lists the learning activities that she takes part in, both online and offline. Sometimes she simply lists the activity, other times she lists what she learned, and she often has a link to the activity or writes a blog post about it. Now, I encourage everyone who's using online learning to put together their own educational log. Whether you put it online, as Jill does, or keep it private, which is what I do, it's a good way to have an inventory of your continuing education. Now, the most important question, how much time do you have? And how much of that time do you want to devote to your one-name study? This is my one-name study schedule, and I have about 40 hours each month to spend on my one-name study and my obligations to the Guild. Some months this schedule is completely out of whack, and a perfect example was February when I attended Roots Tech. But for the most part, I try to maintain a balance between my education, research, social media, publishing, and my Guild volunteer activities. That's all that collaboration, communication, and cooperation we keep mentioning today. Each of us needs to figure out our own schedule, but make sure you give yourself enough time to learn, research, share, and volunteer. And make it a point, don't make the mistake of skewing too much of your time in one area to the detriment of other areas, because I think you'll really burn out if you do that. And as you can see, I schedule about 8 hours each month for education, both online and offline. So I definitely have to make choices and prioritize my online learning opportunities. And of course, you need to give yourself the time necessary to use what you learn. You need to be a doer, not just a viewer. For the most part, 1 hour of online learning requires an additional 2 to 3 hours of your time, because we need to review the lesson, pick a few items to act on, and put into practice what we learned, because practice makes memory. Now let's take a look at the tremendous number and types of online learning opportunities that are out there, because there really are building blocks for our continuing education. This first group of resources are for the most part self-paced learning, and any interaction is on your own terms. These online learning opportunities are a good start if you have time constraints or you need to get your one-name study education in small doses. The second group of resources requires you to be an active participant and part of a group learning experience. All of these learning opportunities require a greater time commitment and additional work in order to get the most from the experience. Since we're focusing on webinars and more today, I'm going to touch briefly on the resources in part 1, but I'll post a discussion of these resources on my YouTube channel, and I'll focus on the resources in part 2. But first, how many of these search engines are you familiar with? And I've listed only 8 of the search engines. How many of these 8 do you use on a regular basis? Whatever search engine you use, and be sure to use more than one. How do you start your search? And more importantly, how do you limit it, or smart search? A Google search with the terms genealogy, research, free, and webinars brings back almost 500,000 results. A Google search with the terms genealogy and free webinars in quotes brings back a much more manageable 8,000 results. And a Google search with surname or one name and free webinars in quotes brings back 254 results. And remember, you can also filter your search results, whether you use a general or a focused search using search tools, by time, duration, or type. So if you're looking for something that was posted in the last year and you'd like it to be a YouTube video and you don't want it to be any more than 30 minutes, you can include those filters and narrow down your results. So when you're searching for online learning opportunities and you want to filter your results, that's what you want to do, because you can take advantage of the tools in any of the search engines. They all provide them. And if you wish someone would do that search and make those links for you, well, we have a friend in Cindy's list. For over 18 years, Cindy has been our reference librarian. She makes sure that we have genealogy and family history links that are categorized by subject, location, or time period, so that we can focus on using these resources. Searching for education in the category index brings back something for everyone, and the choices serve as a reminder that online learning is not just one type of learning. The related categories are also quite helpful. Cindy provides links by subject matter, skill level, and format. Cindy's list is a great start as you navigate to find online learning opportunities. Now, tutorials are a great way to learn more about a specific topic, whether that is how to work with a software program, master a piece of technology, or learn about specific research topics or resources. Whether in a written or video format, you'll be able to follow along with the tutorial and learn a variety of subjects and skills. When you sign in to the Family Search website and click on Get Help, you'll see the Learning Center and their research wiki. Clicking on the Learning Center takes you to any number of tutorials that are either country-specific or subject-specific, and these are excellent tutorials. Clicking through to Ancestry's Learning Center opens the door to a variety of online learning opportunities. And this Learning Center is in front of their paywall, so you don't have to be a subscriber to Ancestry to take advantage of this. Now you can check out the What's New section, as well as the First Steps and Next Steps section. Ancestry's tutorials are as short and focused as their 5-minute finds to Krista Cowan's 30-minute Barefoot Contessa videos, as well as several 60-minute videos that cover research strategies using their data sets. And be sure to check out Ancestry's State Research Guides, because this has up-to-date information about the history, record sets, and offline and online resources for each of the 50 states and 2 additional territories that make up the United States. These were finished in December of 2014, and they are incredibly helpful, and the links take you directly to those record sets. So definitely check those out if you have a surname that's prevalent in 1 or more states in the United States. Now, if you want to watch and learn how to do something, in fact, pretty much anything, you really do need to check out YouTube. And if you have a Gmail account or you're on Google+, then you have a YouTube channel at your disposal, whether you want to make some videos or whether you want to use your YouTube channel to make a list of your subscriptions, so you basically have a television station of these subscriptions to watch when you want. Many of your favorite software programs, television stations, universities, genealogists, and hobbyists can be found on YouTube. Now, a quick search for genealogy brought back almost 105,000 results. Yet again, you can click on the filter button and narrow your results by upload date, format, length of video, and features. You can further limit your results by, among other things, relevance and rating. And once you start choosing videos on YouTube, YouTube gives you some suggestions of additional videos you might be interested in. Now, the Guild of One-Name Studies YouTube channel includes recordings of the Guild seminars, the monthly hangouts, and the Guild conferences and AGMs. The Guild includes links to several members who also have YouTube channels. So this is a great site to subscribe to, and if you do that, then you'll be getting other information about genealogy, one-name studies, surname research. The British Library, Find My Past, the National Library of Northern Ireland, and the U.S. National Archives are just a few examples of the organizations that have YouTube channels. Their presentations, tutorials, seminars, and oftentimes interviews can all be found here. As you can see, you can subscribe to a YouTube channel, and that's that red button up in the top left-hand corner, and that organization's videos will be uploaded to your YouTube channel. If you subscribe, as they come up and as someone adds something, it automatically gets added to your subscription so that you know that you have something available to watch. Now, if you click on a video to watch, this is what shows up in the window: the title, organization, and individual who made the video, as well as the date the video was published. And that's something you're going to want to check on. You know, with DNA studies, you're going to want to have it be the more recent videos, you know, not something from 5 years ago, but something in the past year or two. Now, as you can see, you can also see how many times the video has been viewed, and right here that is 2,290 times, how many times it's been liked or disliked, as well as any of the comments or questions that have come in from anyone watching the video. To the right-hand side, YouTube has provided a number of related videos, and these are based on the terms and tags that are provided when the videos are uploaded. So if you're looking for more on DNA or Irish research, many of the videos listed to the right will be ones that you'll want to check out. And you can always add those videos to watch later on your own channel. Now, just to give you an example, because I've used some Google search results, this is the Bing search results for genealogy webinars. Now, if you click on videos, you can see all of the videos that are listed for genealogy webinars, and they're on basically what amounts to cards, and if you bring them up individually, you can open them right from here. You can filter these results by, among other things, source. So here you not only get YouTube videos, and YouTube is now owned by Google, so they're going to be pushing their own. You can also get news channels. We have CNN and CBS here, as well as MSN Video, Hulu, and Vimeo. And these are some of the other players in the video field. And my guess is as more sources that way are added, they'll be adding these to the results as well. Now, SlideShare provides a place to upload slides and video presentations. SlideShare users tend to focus on slides, and I think part of the reason for that is because YouTube has such a stranglehold on videos. The search button is well hidden because of how dark it is at the top, but once you find it, it's easily reached. A search for genealogy brought back almost 11,000 results, and I noticed that a number of Canadian and Europeans use this site for university, library, and society slide presentations. As you can see, you can filter the results by upload date, format, and language. Now, I would definitely suggest, I was really interested in our women ancestors and navigating research with the GPS, and that's the genealogical proof standard, not the GPS in your cars. Now, as technology continues to improve, we're able to take presentations and conferences to the viewers. And this has been a real benefit for individuals who can't attend a conference and for organizations to share some of their educational event with viewers at home. Today, in fact, Guild members are able to watch these proceedings from all over the world. If any of you watched any of the presentations from Family Search's Roots Tech held in February, you know that the combination of live stream presentations, recorded interviews, and the Facebook and Twitter posts made those who weren't there feel part of the conference. This is just another example of online learning in action. Family Search streamed, recorded, and archived 3 of the keynotes and 27 of the sessions and this is on their Roots Tech website. And this is all for us to watch on our own schedule. But did you know that the PDF syllabus materials for each of the Roots Tech sessions, and there were over 200 of them, are available for you to download? Shown here is a listing of the syllabus materials from the computer labs, and they had topics such as Evernote, batch processing, metadata, Google Docs, and finding digital historical newspapers. So these PDF materials would be very useful to you if you just wanted to read through them and learn something. Now, over to the left-hand side is the first page from my syllabus for the Who Does That? An Introduction to One Name Studies session. And I think that was a total of 4 or 5 pages. So that's there, and then a number of the recordings are there as well. Now, I hope that most of you are familiar with wikis. A wiki is simply an online collaborative encyclopedia. Wikis are put together by individuals, organizations, and specialty groups. Many societies, including the Guild, maintain their wikis behind the member paywall, and this is so that it operates as a benefit of membership. Keep in mind that wikis are not a source, but they are a resource. They're a roadmap of sorts to help you with your research. This article was the result of a search for Ireland on Wikipedia. If you scrolled through to the end of the article, you'd see the links to their notes and references, as well as the bibliography and the external links, which I've shown over to the side. All links are shown in blue, and they're live. You can click right through to whatever you want to look at. So why not go ahead and think of a topic or your research plan that you want to know more about, and then check out Wikipedia. I think it's a really good first stop. The Family Search Wiki is found by clicking on the Get Help or Search tabs. Now, as you can see, you can search by place or topic. There are over 78,000 articles on this wiki, and they are updated continuously. So take a look for the country and subject matter articles with links to the sources. And what's great about Family Search is the digitized record sets are also live links. You can go directly to the records that you want to take a look at and see everything that Family Search has about a particular country's records. Now, the Guild has its own wiki for One Name Study researchers, which can be accessed by logging in and clicking through to the members room. Once there, click on the Information tab, which will take you to the wiki. And I'm always surprised when Guild members tell me that they're unaware of this resource. Whether you're looking for methodology or location information and links, the Guild wiki is probably the best place to learn more about it. Now, as you can see, yet again I selected Ireland. The Guild Wiki has a lengthy article with source links broken down by topic and location. And it also directs you to the Family Search Wiki, so there's very good collaboration between the two. Now, one of the best kept secrets at the Guild Wiki, in my opinion, is the fact that the Art of One Name Studies is there. Many of you are familiar with the booklet that was published by the Guild in 2012, but you can also find it and use it online, and it has some additional detail in it. It's a great resource to use when you want to learn how to start and conduct your one name study through all of those 7 steps or pillars. Be sure to take a look at the many selections found at the Information tab. This was another one that I wasn't really too much aware of, and I had to kind of ramble around on the website to find. Especially useful is the Seminar and Conference Proceedings. This is an excellent place to find seminar handouts, recordings, and slides that are all related to one name studies. When I first joined, I went through the presentations on data capture, mapping, and computers. It was really helpful to me to learn from the other Guild members and those guest speakers and to apply that knowledge right from the start with my one name study. And I was really unfamiliar with how to use Excel and manipulate that data, and those were really helpful presentations. Be sure to go directly to the websites for any family history societies or associations that you belong to or that the Guild belongs to on your behalf. Many times a ramble through the website, and I'll admit that some are much better laid out than others. It's going to help you find online and offline learning opportunities. Recorded tutorials, presentations, and webinars are often available to you to watch on your own schedule. Here's an example from the Federated Family History Societies that's located in the United Kingdom, so I'm guessing that many of you are familiar with this. If you've not already downloaded their Really Useful for You PDF, make that one of your takeaways from this webinar. It's a 24-page PDF, and it has information on over 100 websites, a list of member societies, and several articles for your use with your family history and your one name study. Now, I'm sure that most of you attending today are already quite familiar with Januki, but for the rest of us, certainly Americans who are just crossing the pond with our research, this website is a goldmine. I'm a visual learner, so seeing the organization of their website, the makeup of the countries, and then the breakdown by various jurisdictions was a real help because it was totally unfamiliar to me. And you might notice that there's a surnames list shown in their site navigation. Always be on the lookout for something like the surnames list on any of the websites that you visit. With both an interactive map, and you can just click on the country that you're interested in, and in this instance I clicked on the Isle of Man, as well as the topic links, you can easily find what you're looking for. Now, you can see the surnames list as well as several links, including the link to the Guild website. And this is just one more reason why it's so important if you have a registered study to publish your profile on the Guild website. Because someone linking in here, coming to Januki and seeing the Guild could just click through and then find your surname study. It's a really good idea for collaboration. Now, social media is the catch-all term for so much of the communication that takes place online today, whether that's through a blog, a podcast, a Google Plus Hangout, or the various social networking sites. And these all provide online learning opportunities. Now, there are several sessions today about websites, blogs, and other social media sites. This will be a really good opportunity to learn more about these tools and see how they can help you get connected with others who might be interested in your one name study. And now we come to webinars. There has been an absolute explosion in webinars, and especially in genealogy and family history webinars in the past 4 years. Webinars provide societies and organizations the ability to schedule regular learning opportunities at a real savings in both time and the costs associated with in-person seminars. Webinars provide an opportunity to have lectures or presentations that can be recorded and archived for the general public or limited to the membership as a society benefit. And although each group publicizes its webinars individually, Pat Richley Erickson set up Genia Webinar's website, and it operates as the first stop if you want to see what's available and when. As you can see, the calendar shows in a few formats. I tend to use the agenda format so I can see all the information. When you click on a specific event, and it has everything there by date, you'll see the date, time, organization hosting, speaker, and description of the webinar, meeting, or hangout. Now, clicking through to more details will provide the registration information, and you can copy that event to your own online calendar. Some examples of webinars that can be found are listed at the Genia Webinar site. Each is hosted by a different organization, and these webinars can also be found at the organization site. So I have another suggestion here. Be sure to click through to the various websites if you want to see the organization's complete webinar program. Let's take a look at these three. First, we have Find Your American Ancestors Using Canadian Records, hosted by the Minnesota Genealogical Society. Now, I think you know why I selected this one, because my 2015 project is focusing on Canadian records. American Revolution Genealogy, hosted by Family Tree Webinars. This could be of interest because as a result of that revolution, many loyalists crossed the border into Canada. So again, you're going to be looking at some Canadian records or knowing that people left what later became the United States and went to Canada. And finally, using Evernote as your primary tool for capturing notes, hosted by the Illinois State Genealogical Society. Since I use Evernote, this could really help me learn how to get more out of the app. So you see, it's a combination of records, country information, and technology tools. The webinars are available on all types of subjects. Now keep in mind that you need to register for each of these webinars. Sometimes the webinars are limited as to the number of attendees, and unless you're a member of the organization, oftentimes the webinar is free during the live recording, but placed behind the member paywall, sometimes immediately, other times 7 to 10 days afterwards. And after the fact, it's only available to the members. If there's a time difference, you're going to want to use the time zone converter so that you can check out when that webinar goes live where you live. Another place to check on webinars is at Cindy's List. That's one of the sites that you're really going to want to bookmark and spend some time playing around in. And if you can find a webinar on Cindy's List, and I think she does them pretty regularly, that would be a real good one to attend. Now you can scroll through choices for online courses and webinars, and these all relate to genealogy and family history. And the links will take you directly to those resources to check out any that might be of interest to you. American Ancestors is the website for the New England Historic Genealogical Society, and they have a number of online learning resources, short tutorials, webinars, as well as articles. We found the online learning at American Ancestors website, but don't stop there. Even if you're not a member of American Ancestors, you can use the search facilities to learn what's available both online and offline. Here are search results for the Keough surname, and many of these records are only available at the New England Historic Genealogical Society's library. And their library also has an excellent selection of resources. In this instance, that second one is Newfoundland resources. So if I were going to be going to Boston, I could look these records up by going in. I'm also a member because this is important enough to me. The New England Historic Genealogical Society has New England resources, early American history, as well as Maritimes. So it's a really good resource. If your roots are in early New England, their ongoing study projects also might just have something of interest to you as you study British, Irish, and Scottish surnames. Now you can not only find Ancestry's online learning opportunities at their YouTube channel, but you can go directly to their Learning Center tab and select archived webinars. And then you can do a search for what you're looking for. Whether it's learning about the resources and records available or search strategies, their webinars are quite helpful as you navigate the Ancestry website. Now, not only does the Federation of Family History Societies provide useful links to various websites, but they also have links to both offline and online learning opportunities. Just click on their Courses and Talks tab at their website. And if you use social media, be sure to add any of these organizations to your friends or circles or following so that you'll be in the know when new materials, webinars, or tutorials are added to their websites. As you can see, the National Archives is a listed link. Click on the link and you're taken directly to their website. The National Archives has a wealth of information, both as webinars and recorded presentations, including methodology and how-tos on specific record sets. When you arrive at the website, be sure to use the search feature to narrow your choices, or just scroll through the entire listing to get a sense of what their offerings are. Perhaps the biggest player in the webinar field is Legacy Family Tree webinars, and these are hosted by Jeff Rasmussen of Millennia. He brings together presenters from all over the world to speak on various genealogy-related topics. The webinars are scheduled every Wednesday. They're free to the public. It does require registration, and the recorded webinars are available on their website for, I believe, up to 10 days after the live presentation, and then they're placed behind the member paywall. So if you subscribe to Legacy Family Tree webinars, they have syllabus materials that you can also get, and you can subscribe on an annual basis, or you can purchase the individual webinars. Now, you can download the brochure, which lists all the upcoming webinars, and Jeff schedules them a year in advance, so they're scheduled through January or February of 2016. You can sign up for the webinars individually, or you can take a look at the entire listing and click on any of the ones you want and just sign up as a group or a block of webinars. Now, the schedule for the webinars can be viewed at their website, and you can also learn all of the details and registered simply by clicking on that yellow button. The Southern California Genealogical Society is the organizer for Jamboree, and I believe last year Dr. Gleason was one of the keynote speakers on DNA there. And they record many of their sessions, and those are available in the June timeframe for individuals to watch. So they have this weekend conference that's in Burbank, California, and they stream so many of those sessions from the conference. In addition, they host a webinar series with webinars twice a month, and I believe that's on the first Saturday and the third Wednesday. Their schedule is at their website, and it can be downloaded, but it can also be reviewed on the website, and you can register simply by clicking on the appropriate link at their website. Attendance is free during the live broadcast, but their recordings are located behind the member paywall immediately after the webinar. The National Archives is known as the United States' attic because many of the nation's records are maintained by NARA, either at their headquarters in Washington, D.C., or at any of their regional offices. Clicking on Genealogists on their homepage will take you to many of NARA's online and offline resources. Be sure to check out their recordings from their annual virtual genealogy fair. It's a 2 or 3 day event, and they record all of the sessions, as well as many of the tutorials that they have on how to find and use various record sets at NARA. And the Library of Congress in the United States is an absolute wealth of information. They maintain several collections, and that includes articles, books, recordings, maps, films, and some major artwork. So definitely get lost at the Library of Congress online site. You'll also notice that they have presentations. That's over to the right-hand side, and they have a lot of virtual walkthroughs. So you're going to want to play around at that site as well and sign up to attend any of their webinars. Family Tree magazine is published every other month in the United States, and it focuses on articles about genealogy and family history. They also offer webinars and presentations at their website, and that's familytree.com. A search for Canadian genealogy brought up these 8 results, which is a combination of webinars, PDF guides, and online courses. Depending on what your educational plan is for 2015, you might want to search the Family Tree website and check out their offerings. And in this instance, a webinar is being offered by Lisa Louise Cook, and she's a really well-known American genealogist and educator. If you were interested in learning more about Google and how to use it with your genealogy research, this would definitely be the webinar for you. Her website has links to her podcast and newsletter, and I would always suggest that. If you see that someone's giving a webinar and you want to learn more about them because you don't know them, see if they have a website or if they're on Facebook or Google Plus or something, and kind of get a sense of them. Now, her podcast and her newsletter are both free, and they are excellent. She is such a great source of online learning that I would really encourage you to go to her website and check that one out. Be sure to take a look for local genealogy webinars in your own area. I'm going to show you some examples of American ones, but I am sure that there are local genealogy societies where you live, whether that's in Australia, the UK, Ireland, anywhere else. Take a look because these will sometimes really surprise you. The Florida State Genealogical Society hosts a monthly webinar, and the schedule's listed on their website. As you can see, the webinar on Canadian records and resources is offered through a number of local as well as national webinar programs. So oftentimes if you miss it one place, you'll be able to catch it somewhere else. So take a look at that because the major presenters tend to grab webinars from kind of known quantities, so to speak. And the Illinois Genealogical Society hosts monthly webinars, and they do this in conjunction with Family Search. Illinois does just such a wonderful job. Their website is excellent, and their webinars are really well done. And these can be found at the ISGS Webinars tab. That's over there on the left-hand side. As you can see, you can register for webinars right at the site. But the ISGS also has a surnames research tab. And by clicking on that, and you can see it over on the right-hand side, it shows a searchable list of surnames that have been registered by various members of that organization. Usually there's a county, sometimes there's a time period, sometimes that person has it for the entire country. And it also has their contact information, so you can send them an email. So always check out local genealogical society websites, certainly in the states where you think your surname has a presence, and see if they have a surname research list. And again, while the monthly webinars are a great online learning opportunity, take the time to check out any local or regional societies where your surname has that presence and check for their additional offerings. The ISGS not only has a surnames list, but it also has free or open to the public databases. And a lot of times these are ones that the individual members put together, so they're not things that are put together by, or maintained by somebody like Ancestry or Family Search or whatever. These are very localized. A lot of times they're local cemeteries, some church records, that type of thing. Now, Minnesota has some of the best genealogical websites. Their state archives is amazing. You can do searches with just a surname for birth and death records, as well as some marriage information. All of their marriage information by county is listed on that site. They have statewide genealogical society that is wonderful and focuses not only on the general area, but also focuses on particular ethnic groups. So you could be meeting up with the Irish genealogical group or the Swedish or Norwegian or Slovakian. So definitely take a look depending on what your surname is. And they also have some excellent local genealogical societies. I'm just going to point out that in Carver County, their volunteers index all of the newspapers. So I was able to put in some surnames on their website and find newspaper article links for any of those individuals that I was looking for. So it's that kind of thing where you really want to go and play around in the individual websites to find out more. Now, as you can also see, the Canadian Records and Resources webinar is also being offered through the Minnesota Genealogical Society, and that's at a totally separate time. So if you missed it, you know, I think I showed it to you in Illinois, you could also try and pick it up in Minnesota. Now, keep in mind when you look at these, and you'll notice this first webinar is free. The second one that's mentioned has a fee involved. And this is always something that they point out to you at the beginning. So just take a look at that. Now, I mentioned earlier that online courses give you the opportunity to learn or relearn a wide variety of subjects, and many of them are not genealogy-based. Take advantage of these opportunities, as they'll make your genealogy and family history and your one-name study much richer. However, online courses require more of you as a student. These courses are usually offered as a series of lessons, as opposed to just a one-hour webinar, and many are offered on either the high school or college level. Khan Academy provides courses that are geared to grade school and high school level education, but I don't want you to not think of it that way, because it was especially useful to this math-challenged student. You know, I was able to pick up a little bit of the math and the science that I needed in order to understand DNA later. edX, Coursera, and FutureLearn all provide university-level courses on subjects that will give you an in-depth knowledge of history, science, literature, and provide advanced skills for computer science and data analysis. Take a look at the course offerings from each of them and decide if an online course is for you and if it will help you with some aspect of your one-name study research. Now, I mentioned Khan Academy. This is great if you need to brush up on those basic math or science skills. And that's really important before you move on to statistics or you move on to DNA, to understand the basics. And they have a wide variety of subjects available, as well as some amazing partner content through museums and historical organizations. So it's not just straight education. FutureLearn has some excellent social studies courses. They focus on history, political science, and civics, as well as a number of other topics. And I'm just going to show you one. This course found at FutureLearn is what's called a MOOC. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a massive open online course, and it's open to unlimited participation, and it's open access via the web. In this instance, the course was offered by Trinity College, Dublin, in September, and it just started up again last week. The duration of the course is 6 weeks. The instructors provide a description of the course, and the time commitment is 5 hours per week for the 6 weeks, or you need to figure on 30 hours to complete this course. The format is videos, assignments, and discussions, and the instructors anticipate that some of the discussion will use Twitter, and I believe in ours, we just posted back and forth to each other. I took this course in September, and it was excellent. And I had 2 years of Irish history as an undergraduate, but so much of this material was new to me. The video tutorials, recordings, and the posts were fascinating. However, the best part of the course was the other students, and they were of all ages and from all over the world. I actually met a few Keoughs, and I learned so much from my fellow students. It gave me a greater appreciation of just what was going on in Ireland during this pivotal time in history. Significant resources, including lengthy reading lists and websites, were included each week. And what I did was I just downloaded those and added them to my Ireland notebook for use with my one-name study. Now, if you're thinking of taking any online courses offered through universities, just be aware that some have time requirements, prerequisites, and reading lists. These courses offer in-depth online learning opportunities, and in these types of courses, part of the success is based on student participation, and it has to be active. So make sure you have the time and the interest to devote to an online course. If you want to know the absolute best place to learn about one-name studies in an online course, check out Pharaoh's teaching website. Pharaoh's has partnered with the Guild of One Name Studies for several years to offer 2 courses, an introductory and an advanced course on One Name Studies. And if you've never taken an online course, they offer a sample so you can see if this type of online learning would work for you. Just click on the link, try out a free Pharaoh's lesson. And that's, I show you that over on the right-hand side. Now, my introduction to online learning for One Name Studies was Helen Osborne's course, Introduction to One Name Studies, and I don't think you can get any better than that. The course was excellent, and it provided me with a really good framework for getting started and organizing my study right from the get-go. She's on the staff at Pharaoh's, and she teaches both the introduction and the advanced courses. I believe that Helen was a featured speaker at the Guild's The Next Stage seminar held in November. Her presentation, What is the Point of a One Name Study, was live streamed, and it's also archived at the Guild YouTube channel. Over 500 people have watched the video, and in my opinion, although I thought all of the presentations were excellent, hers was the highlight of the seminar. Now, I'm planning to take the Advanced One Name course in 2016, so perhaps some of you will join me. Be sure to check out the many courses offered by Pharaoh's Teaching, as once you have the basics down, you're going to want to focus on particular record sets or countries, and I think they do a really good job here. And if you can find, and I just wanted to let you know that you can find online learning at websites that might surprise you. Here, John Grenham, who's an expert on Irish heritage and genealogy, and I believe he's written the Bible, as they say, on Irish genealogy, he's teaching an online course called Tracing Your Irish Ancestors, and I believe that that goes along with his book. And that's found at Irish Times Training. Now, all of the other courses there have no interest for me, but I found this course just by looking up his name. The course is online, and after you've signed up and paid the fee, you can start it at any time. There are 11 modules or lessons, and if your focus is Irish research, it might just be the course for you. So now that we've found some videos that you're interested in watching and some webinars and online courses that you're interested in attending, how do we gain from the online learning experience? Make sure you've put the course on your calendar and that you have a template for your notes, and I'd suggest the Cornell note-taking system. Have a filing system. Put everything in a genealogy education folder. Make your notes, title them by date and course title, and that way you'll have everything in chronological order and you can easily see what you have. Do whatever works for you, but do have a filing system. Check whether, based on the course description, there's a reading list or something that would help you understand the course more easily. Read any of the handouts or the assignments before the course starts so that you're kind of prepared to listen critically and actively participate. Do the work required in any course and do it early. Something comes up, always, and you don't want to be scrambling at the last minute or not give that course your best effort. So it's all about being part of the online learning community. Do a bit of reading, a bit of posting, and then join in the conversations and courses. I hope to see some of you at future Guild Hangouts, and since we're working on future topics for our North American Hangouts, please share your ideas for what you would like to learn more about in 2015. And I think we only have a few minutes, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now, or send me an email, like I mentioned at the beginning, and I'll be happy to answer them and then also post them. And thanks so much for inviting this American to present at the Guild 2015 conference, even at the ungodly hour of 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning.
Well, thank you very much, Tessa. We are quite short of time, but I will just take a couple of questions if there's anybody who wants to ask now, rather than take up Tessa's option of emailing her. Hold on a minute.
Hi Tessa, it's John.
Hello.
Would you introduce the Guild to Dear Myrtle? Pat.
Well, and that's what I mentioned. I call her Pat Richley Erickson. That's her name, but she's also known as Dear Myrtle. She's the one who has the Genia Webinars calendar, which is just a real treat. It makes it so much easier to find them. She also hosts a hangout every Monday where she kind of, it's very casual, but it's almost like a chat show for up to 90 minutes. And she talks about whatever is going on in genealogy. And she invites guests in, and she is more than happy to talk about whatever you're interested in. You can send her a private email and tell her about it. Between her and her cousin Russ, who is her tech advisor and does the recording for her, they just cover a wide variety of topics. And I know that Hillary, I can't remember her last name, Gatsby, I think, out of, I want to say Scotland, attends quite often. And there's a number, John attends, there's a number of people who attend from Australia, England, and the United States. She does a number of presentations, so I definitely look up Dear Myrtle, both on Facebook and on Google+.
So does anyone else want to ask anything at the moment? Right, well, it just leaves me then to say thank you very much indeed, Tessa, for giving us rather a lot to do. We'll be checking out many of your ideas.
Great.
I really do appreciate you. I know how difficult it is to do this at a distance, because you have no real interaction with the audience, and it's been absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much. Now go back to bed, I should think.
I think so. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.
Say that the 7 Pillars of Wisdom book that Tessa mentioned, there are copies available if you haven't got one, out on the front, and I think on the bookstall outside, they're free. So.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing.
Testing.
Okay. Is that all right? Is that too loud? So long as I don't shout.
I'll just turn it down.
Right.
Oh, you're on now.
Well, good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second of our tools and techniques sessions for this conference. And we have Alan talking to us today. And many of you will know Alan. He's often speaking at guild seminars and events. He also makes wonderful marmalade. So if anyone wants any in return for a donation to charity, there is some outside. You can all read his biography in your conference booklets. So I'd rather give him the time than just tell you what you can read already. So over to Alan for how to set up a Facebook group and researching using Facebook. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There was an awful lot of number of people here. I'm sure some of you maybe ought to be in the DNA one next door. And I'd actually rather be in that one as well than this one. But so as long as everybody's here for Facebook, that's the important thing. So I've been a guild member since 1994. I joined Facebook early in 2008. And then in August 2008, I created my own Farmery Families Facebook group. So that's sort of the Alcoholics Anonymous bit over with. So just a very quick show of hands. I mean, how many people in the room are already on Facebook? Oh, that's virtually everybody. That's so you all know. But so how many of you belong to a group, any group? Fewer. And then how many people have actually got their own specific family history group? Not very many at all. So hopefully, for whatever I tell you, you won't be able to disagree with me. Facebook's been around since 2004. It's now the world's largest online social network, 1.39 billion active users. That's almost 1 in 5, 19% of the world population are on Facebook. More than 80% of those users are outside of US and Canada. $8 billion in annual revenue that Facebook makes, and 3/4 of that is from advertising. And currently 38% of the people on Facebook are on Facebook on a mobile smartphone device or tablet or anything like that. And people, as I'm sure anybody that's on Facebook, or the majority of you on Facebook will know, people will post about just about everything. And a lot of what they post about you're not interested in at all. But that's by the by. The important thing for us is that in terms of doing a one-name study, we can use Facebook to help us, and we can do it for free. They're making their money from the advertising. It doesn't cost anything to be on Facebook, to have a group or whatever. So what we're going to sort of cover in the next 40, 45 minutes or so is why we should set up a group or a page, how to set it up. Well, then I'll go through and show you how I'm using it for the Farmery study, how you can use it for your one-name study, even without having a group, and then a couple of ideas or things where we can actually show you a couple of the guild members have got their own groups as well, other than my own one. The whole thing about setting up a group or a page is actually being able to communicate with a whole group of people who are like-minded with yourselves. And it could be on a specific interest, it could be on family history, it could be on that you have Chihuahua dogs and you go to dog shows, or you're interested in steam engines or whatever. It doesn't matter what the subject is, it's bringing together all these people with a common interest. There's a difference between you can have a page or you can have a group. Now, you can probably see that. I mean, I'm not expecting you to read all through that, but one of the early decisions is to decide whether you want a page or whether you want a group. A page tends to be for a company or an organization where they will put it up like a bit of a shop window, and then you can click and say that you like that particular page, and then you will be able to view information that they put up. But it's much more open than a group, so that you haven't got the same privacy controls. It's a much bigger audience. They can have a much wider number of people liking them. It goes into the thousands and the thousands. Whereas a group gives you, I think, more control. You can have your privacy settings, you can control who sees it, what they see, and you can adjust those depending on the size of the audience. And the way you communicate with those people is slightly different as well. Now, what we're not going to cover today is if you're not on Facebook, how you set yourself up to start with and how you set all your own privacy controls. But obviously you have to be a member of Facebook already in order to then go ahead and do the next stage, creating your group or your page. Personally, I think the group is the more relevant one for us, but very briefly, I'll just show you how you create a page as opposed to a group, and then we'll really concentrate on groups. Up on that, from that little arrow on your main homepage on Facebook, if you click down, you get the option to create a page. And then you probably won't be able to necessarily read it at the back, but it allows you to select what sort of organisation or whatever you're going to be. So there's one for company, there's one for entertainment. So a lot of celebrities, for example, will have a page rather than a group. So it's people coming to like them as a page. And it then allows you to come down and pick your specific type of company, or organisation, or institution that is going to sort of describe your page. But I think the group is the more important. Certainly for me, I find a group more relevant. The easiest way to create something is from your basic homepage on the left-hand side. If you belong to groups, it'll be listed all the groups, and then right at the bottom is the option to create a group, which takes you to that little screen, and then you've got that. First of all, that's your main starting page for creating the group. You can also get it in two other ways. Not quite so easy, but again, from your main home page, Facebook will suggest groups for you on the right-hand side, and then at the bottom of that, you have the option then to create a group again yourself, and it sort of leads you straight to that same starting dialog box. And then the third way, if you're actually at the time viewing a particular group, so at this time I was actually in the Guild's own group, then again you've got the create a group option. So whichever of the three starting points you come from, you'll end up with that starting point dialog box for your group. And you can see straight away, it wants, you need to give your group a name. So you need to give a little bit of thought about what name overall you're going to give to your group, which will really summarize what you're about. I mean, I probably deliberately chose not to have one name study in there in terms of trying to make the appeal to people who may not even understand what a one name study is. The biggest thing about your next stage about your group is working out what your privacy settings are going to be. Now, I don't expect you all to now sit and read through all of the various settings, but you can have three different levels of privacy. There's public, anybody can see the group, the members, and what they post. Closed, anybody can find the group and see who's in it, but only the members can see what's been posted. Or you can even have a secret group where only the members can find it. So I guess there will be certain circumstances where you want a secret group, but if you want to use Facebook to actually help your one name study and your research, probably a secret group is probably not the way to go. And so for each of the three different levels of privacy, it will tell you what people can do within it in terms of who can join, who can see the name, and all, et cetera, et cetera. And that information is available on Facebook itself, or I can give it as part of a handout afterwards, by email for anybody that would be particularly interested. Okay, within your group, you want people to join your group as the members of your group. And again, you've got an option that you could have that any member can add or approve members to your group, or you could have it that anybody can add a member, but you as the admin must approve them into your group, you will find that you will get really strange people, apparently strange people, asking to join your group. Every now and then someone from China pops up and says they want to join Farmery Families. Now I wouldn't, I will only approve them if I can actually determine that they actually have a genuine interest in what I'm doing. So there might be a bit of dialogue messaging through Facebook behind the scenes to understand why they want to join the group. But often if they've got a Chinese name and or a Japanese name or any name that doesn't appear to be right, they may just be sort of harvesting or fishing and just wanting to join any group that they can get their hands on. Okay, you need to give your group a description, to tell people a little bit more information on what the group is all about. So I've got it, it's a one-name study of the ancestry of Farmery, and I've then listed all the various spellings, the key spellings of the name. See there, I've got it as a public group. The descriptions come down into that description, and you see there I've got 184 members at the moment. You can also add 3 tags to your group, which helps in the overall search process when people are searching through Facebook and looking for things of interest. So if you were doing steam trains on the Bluebell Railway in Sussex, you might put trains Bluebell Sussex. It's a little bit like sort of the same sort of theory that you might search on Google, the sort of the terms you put in, then going searching for those terms. So I've got ancestry, genealogy, and one-name study are the 3 tags. So then when people look at the group page, they will then see those 3 tags on the group page. You need to determine how you're going to allow people to post things onto your group page. And again, you've got 2 options. Members and administrators can post to the group, or only administrators can post to the group. In a little bit, when I come and show you the sort of things that I'm doing with my group, you'll probably get a better understanding as to why I've made it that anybody can post onto the group. You could also have it that anybody can post onto your group, but you have to approve the post before it actually goes up onto the page. So, if you've found that people were starting to post stuff that you were thinking was inappropriate, you might go back and change your privacy settings to sort of just to control that. But touch wood, I've never had any problem so far with anybody putting anything up that they shouldn't do. Once you've got your group, you want to actually populate it with some people. I say I've got 184 members currently. Some people have put themselves on there or asked to be on there, but I've actually, I've put people on myself. So you've got an option that you can add people over there. So when I printed this off, I've got 184 members, one of which was new. You can also invite people by email. So you know somebody's email address, but you may not even know whether they're on Facebook. You can invite them with an email address, and and I believe at that point Facebook would send them, if they're not on Facebook, Facebook will send them a message to that email address saying, you've been invited to join this Facebook group. And I think that's, I guess, there's a thing there about Facebook being able to increase the number of people who are Facebook users. And if I'm just adding people there, that's would be somebody that's already on Facebook, and I can just add them straight into the group. Again, we've done from that little tab there. Another option then is to manage your group. This is where you can go and change your description. You can add an icon to your group, and then you can add a cover photo. Because what you'd like is, a nice photograph on your front page that actually, again, says something about your group. And I can see Roger there. So I'm not sure whether you recognise that lady there. Roger's wife is on my... Are you there as well? Oh yes, you're hiding at the back. Roger's wife is one of my, has Farmery ancestry, so she's came to one of my Farmery gatherings, and that picture is from a Farmery gathering a couple of years back now. as I say, a nice group photograph. That's, I've got that on Facebook in my photograph store, and I've just uploaded that and made it the group photo for my page, the group. Next thing you can do, you can create an event. So if you were perhaps having a family gathering or something like that, you can actually go and create an event. So these, you'll see on here, these are all the previous farmery gatherings back to 2010 that I created within Facebook. So it just asks you for the name. And as you see that, I mean, you may not be able to see it, but it says e.g. birthday party. So it could be that you're using a group just for a single one-off event, nothing to do with family history or whatever. And you might want to use a group page to do that, because you can then put the details of where the event's going to, what the event is, where it's going to be, what date, what time, and then the privacy depends on who can actually see the event and get an invitation to it. So I just clicked on there that I was going to invite all members of the group to the event. So then coming down into the next setting, edit the group settings. So again, you can change your privacy in here, you can change the membership approval, change your description, change the tags and the posting permissions and the posting approval process. So you can actually go, retrospectively go back and change anything that you've previously set up. So perhaps we just sort of go through and have a look at some of the, some of these ideas in action. We're actually looking at specific pages on my farmery Facebook group. Sorry. So this is in effect a sort of a slimmed down version of what the front page looks like. As I say, the cover photograph, title, then the various tabs that people can do things. People can actually post onto the site from there, and I can add the information about the group. It shows you the tags I've set up and that description that we previously saw. Within the 184 people that I've got as members, I can look and I can, just by clicking on members, I will see all of the people that are members of my group. If I want to search for somebody specific, I can just type their name in there and I can go straight to them. But these are, the first 12 of the people who are members of my group. Whenever somebody joins the group, I make it sort of, as soon as I can, I will send them a welcome message on the wall, which is basically the front page of the group. I will welcome them to the group, and I will then encourage them to share something about themselves in terms of, their family group they belong to, or their ancestry, or where they live. So, for my benefit, but also the benefit of the other people in the group. And that's when you start encouraging people to become interactive with each other. If they see somebody else that it falls into their own family group, it potentially starts that dialogue going. This is where I specifically added somebody called Sarah Gray to the group. So I come across her and I actually specifically got her onto the group. Again, sent her the welcome message, and she came back to tell me a little bit about her ancestry. And then straight away that prompted somebody else who was actually her aunt, I think it was, to then start getting into that dialogue conversation. People who are already within your group, they can suggest and they can add, depending on how you've set the approval process up, other people to the group. So here, this guy called Brant Farmery in America has added Samantha Farmery, who happens to be his wife, added her to the group, and this guy in Grimsby is actually then invited as opposed to adding somebody else to join the group. As I said earlier on, you can get people that ask to join your group, and then there's a sort of, there's the process where it's waiting for you to approve them. So here I've got this request from this lady, and I think she's in South Africa. It tells me she's got 2 friends in the group already, which are these 2 people, so members who know this lady. Also tells me that she has 2 mutual friends with me. So it happens to be the same 2 people because I'm already Facebook friends with these 2 people, and they happen to be in my group. But it could be that the 2 lists are not the same. You know? But I'm not quite sure why she wants to join the group. I'm not yet certain or understanding that she actually has any specific farmery ancestry interest. So I've now just sent her a message to say, you asked to join the group, you know, just tell me a little bit about, you know, what your motivation is for that. So I would be able to either approve her application to join, or I could ignore it, or I could actually specifically block it. If you block it, then that person can't, you know, ask you again, whereas ignoring it is just almost putting it into the pending file, and you can go back and change it later on if you want to. So I said about, you know, events, and perhaps, you know, that's a family gathering. This is from the 2012 farmery gathering, and I created the event and put the details on it there. That was the 2000. There was another one in 2014. What I also did, because I had it on my blog, then I put, it was almost like a news item onto my page or my group to say that there was, you know, the gathering was going to happen, but I also linked it then to my blog. So on my blog was all the information with the timetable, the full program and everything else, but people could link through from the Facebook group page straight onto the blog and get more details. I don't know whether Anne, I can see Anne Cole over there, whether that's one of the Ruston tanks from Lincoln from the First World War. They were making tanks, but they were actually, you know, putting, I think it says something like, you know, to go to Petrograd, so that anybody that was spying thought they literally were tanks, water tanks, been sent over to Russia. So there was a bit of sort of subterfuge there. But the talk on that particular farmery gathering was something about the tanks of Lincoln and their role in World War I. Okay, you can upload photos onto your group page, you know, for general interest. So these are just a couple of recent ones. There's anybody that was at quiz last night will know, if I haven't seen it already, that the Bethlehem Hospital admission registers and casebooks have recently gone online. So that was an Anne Farmery from Deptford going into the asylum in 1742. So I put that up. That's the Court of Governor's minute book from 1692 with William Farmery being made governor of Bethlehem Hospital. So I put that up onto the page. Somebody else to put up a couple of gravestones. People decided to put up family photos, and I like put in newspaper articles. You can also put up files. Now, this is something that I haven't done yet, but you can put up files, you can put up documents of interest to your study and hopefully of interest to other people. Just back up that front page. So as I said, here's those 2 documents that recently come up about Bethlehem Hospital. I put it up on the page. I put a bit of a, you know, a blurb about them, and, you know, very quickly, you've got 4 people down there have clicked like to say that, you know, that almost basically acknowledging that they've seen it and they think it was, you know, a good thing for them to have put up, but also that 13 people in total had actually seen that post, and that was within only probably a couple of hours. Yeah, so it says there 1 hour. So within an hour of me putting that on the Farmery page, already 13 people had seen it, of whom 4 people thought it was interesting enough to actually click like and acknowledge that they'd specifically seen it. So that's posting new discoveries. As I said about posting links to articles on my blog, that was a little bit about the gathering in 2010. Here was, there was a farmery who was a shepherd in Lincolnshire, was in Lincolnshire Life, which I bought on eBay. So I put a little bit about him onto the blog and linked that from the Facebook page. When you've had a gathering, you know, or any event, you know, it's useful to sort of maybe encourage people to come to another year. So actually, you know, we would put up a report about the previous, you know, the gathering that's just happened. And this one actually did this one because it was on in the Lincolnshire Echo, and so that was on their online archive, if you like. So it was easy to link it straight back and to borrow that picture. I was a little bit wary because this guy Richard Farmery and myself have both got T-shirts with Farmery on it, which is actually the logo of Farmery Brewery in Canada, but they're not official T-shirts. He just downloaded the picture off the internet and screen printed a couple of T-shirts. So I was a little bit wary about. I suppose now it's probably gone out to anybody that's on the YouTube channel. So I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Said about people, you know, members posting to the group. So this is one of my contacts, Chris Farmery in Billinghay, I think she is. So she'd been up to Hemswell, the village, not that far from here, and have found 3 Farmery graves. So posted the pictures onto the group page. I haven't done it as yet. I should have done probably 17th of March, a while ago. I will now go back on and put a comment on there, which will be a little bit of biography about the various people on those gravestones, so that if someone sees the grave and then they see the biography, then they, you know, it helps them, or they might actually spur them to add more information, or to do, you know, put any further comments that they've got that I don't know about. So here's a guy, Charles Henry Farmery, born in 1909 in Bigby, that this guy in Grimsby put up. So I then went and put a little bit of biographical information there about the guy in the picture. And then straight away somebody else said, you know, this is Charles Henry, but he said his dad's name was Henry Charles. So, you know, straight away, you know, it's sparking a little bit of discussion there, the fact they are 2 different people. The discussion can go, you know, can get quite in depth. Chris Farmery, I put on the, I got on the blog about a Richard Farmery, George Farmery, who had 23 children, and she was questioning, you know, what do we know about the 23 children? So I then worked out from her information and what I knew that we got a whole load of unknown people. You know, so she had some that I didn't have. So it actually sort of really did start to help that, try to resolve how we had these missing children. He had 2 wives. It wasn't one wife that had all 23 children, but it was between 2 wives. And the second wife was quite considerably younger than he was when they married. I think he was 40-something and she was 17. So, you know, can't be bad, I guess. Obviously, with the anniversary of the start of the First World War last year, I'm trying to make sure, you know, biographically research all the Farmery men who served, and specifically those that didn't survive the war. So I've started to put up information where I find it onto the page. I was just at the end of August, I happened to be unexpectedly near Ypres, so I ended up going to visit Menin Road Military Cemetery, where I knew that there was a Farmery, C Farmery, which is Clive Farmery. So I put a picture of the gravestone up, and then put a little bit of biographical information to go with it. One of the group members, Frank Farmery, put up a picture of his father, 100 years exactly to the day, September 11th, 2014 is when he posted this up, because 100 years previously was when his father enlisted into World War I. So then I could then, based on what that information was, I then put more information that I knew and just credited, you know, made a comment that it was, you know, that it was a lovely photograph of his father. So straight away then that linked back to his Facebook page as well, that, you know, as an acknowledgement that I'd made, you know, a further comment on a picture he'd put up. One picture's gone askew over there, sorry. I will share anything that I can find that I think is of any interest to anybody called Farmery through the Facebook group. So from somebody, from one of my Facebook friends, they announced their engagement, so I put that onto the Farmery group, and then other people then started commenting on that. It was in, you know, I picked up a newspaper announcement of an engagement here, so I put that link, and then when they actually did get married, they put a picture on Facebook of their wedding, so I linked that through onto the Facebook group page as well. Just not quite sure why the picture's gone askew there. Maybe people within, you know, that you know within the wider Farmery community or your own one name community, you know, have had achievements. So there's a guy called Jacob Farmery that his father put up on his Facebook page about his son getting a medal, silver medal in the British Championship. It's kickboxing or something like that. I think that's what it was for. Darren Farmery in Sydney was going to do a charity bike ride, so I put that up as a way of sort of helping his fundraising. Tom Farmery was getting up for a Young Sports Writer of the Year award at the Sports Journalism Awards. So again, it's just, you know, publicising anything that you can find that is interest to you, but maybe of interest to other people as well. Sometimes that can be, you know, news that is sad news. You know, a couple of examples here where, you know, often you can find these online obituaries, and, you know, when somebody has died. So I will put those up. You know, they're both coming from websites or online newspapers. And again, I might put, you know, as a little sort of comment, maybe getting a better idea of who the person actually is, but just, yeah, but in a nice condolence sort of way. Because again, there may be people who are related to this particular person that haven't actually realised that someone has died, so you can actually, you know, sort of a public interest, if you like, angle to publicising that sort of news. I share other people's funny comments sometimes if I think it's appropriate, or their funny photographs. Here, somebody had a bottle of wine called Amory, which I can't find anywhere. And whether he was having a boring meal or not, I don't know. But he got his black pen out and changed it to Farmery. But since that's gone up, it's amazing how many people have emailed and said, or put comments on the Facebook page and said, "Where can I get it? I want some. Where can I get it?" But I can't even find the proper one, let alone the. I said a little bit about earlier on just about the T-shirts that we wear, or that we were wearing in that photograph. There is actually a Farmery brewery in Canada. I don't know whether this was part of their marketing effort or someone had just got some bottles of it and put little Rudolph red noses on and antlers on, but so I shared that. So I said about the Farmery brewery. Again, I publicise all this on the Farmery page. When is a Farmery not a Farmery? When it's the Farmery British Frozen Yoghurt in Richmond and Surrey, when it's the Farmery Estate Brewery, and when it's the Farmery Vertical Urban Farm in Raleigh, North Carolina. But again, because people, you know, these things come up on, you know, other people with Farmery find these things, and, you know, and they're not quite sure why these things exist. It's only just they're sort of playing on the word Farmery, farmer, agriculture, that sort of thinking. So what about, you know, Facebook and your one name study? You know, it may be that you don't actually even want to have a group, or, you know, or do that much later down the line. If you're on Facebook, you know, there are ways you can use Facebook, you know, to further your one name study. It could be that you want to join or follow, you know, any particular group that has a mutual interest group or a mutual interest page. For example, I would imagine most people would know that the Guild has its own Facebook page. During the conference this weekend, I've already been putting up photographs onto that, sort of for just sort of the general interest for those people that aren't here. Gerald Cook is here. I mean, Gloucestershire Guilds as a regional setup. We have Gerald has a Facebook page for that. It could be that, think of the computer program you're on, chances are they will have a Facebook presence and you can, join that, follow that. I mean, I use Custodian, as several of you will know. So there is a Custodian almost users group, but on Facebook. And so I follow that one. It could be that, the ancestral town or the area that you're interested in relative to your one name study or any part of your ancestral research might have a page or a group to follow. Already we heard this morning from Tessa that she found the Plate Cove in Newfoundland page and was able to then post onto that and get information. So I had to quickly go up and change this slide at lunchtime to reflect what she'd said. Could be your local family history society that you belong to has a Facebook presence, and I know Anne Cole has very recently set up one for Lincolnshire, which looks. I would encourage you to go and look at that as an example because it does look very professional. You could have taken the credit for it. But it could just be that you're using Facebook to connect with people with your one name study, but without actually going as far yet as doing a group. So depending on the privacy settings that some people have put up onto Facebook, you can actually find information on people who are not your Facebook friends. You might be able to find out information on who their family members are, their relationships, who mutual friends are, dates of birth, education. It really depends on how they set their settings up. And the younger people tend to go onto Facebook and make everything available and everything known to anybody that wants to look at them. Whereas, perhaps people with a little bit more experience would make things a little bit more private. So I just put in a search for farmery, and this is what came up straight away. So there's the Farmery Brewery, but here's David Farmery. He's actually already a friend because it's ticked to say that he's a friend. And then Anthony Farmery, I'm not sure what Farmery Games and Toys was. There's the Vertical Farm, and then there's a company here called Farmery Security. So I narrowed it down by searching for people. And straight away, here's a Daniel Farmery. He works at McDonald's, lives in Woking. I've got 5 mutual friends with him, so I can probably work out who he is, but I haven't yet added him as a friend. So some of the people here I'm already friends with and others that I'm not. Now this is that Daniel Farmery, who I said who's not yet a Facebook friend with, but I was able to find out all this information by looking, clicking the About Him button. We already said that he went to Collingwood College, lives in Woking, works at McDonald's. But it also, under his life events, tells me he was born in 2001. Now that may or may not be true. It tells me he's in a relationship with Tegan Smith. Okay. It tells me we got 5 mutual friends, so I can click on that, and those are the 5 friends we've got in common. He's single. It tells me who his family members are. He's got a brother, Gary Charlie, brother Ryan Stephen. His father is David. His mother is Yvette Moffat. So presumably his parents are not together, or she's kept her maiden name. His aunt, another aunt here. Because the way he set it up, within all his friends, I could search for anybody called Farmery. And straight away, I've got a whole load of people called Farmery, not necessarily I'm friends with, but he's friends with. So again, it starts to give you a feel potentially for reconstructing family groups. Okay, this is Andrea Farmery. Again, she's not a Facebook friend. Some information there about where she lives. So, where yes, she lives in Leeds. She went to Huddersfield University. She works at Leeds City Council. When I search for her farmery friends, there's a couple there that I'm actually, or 3 there that I'm actually friends with already, including Andrew Farmery. If I click through from him, it actually then tells me he's actually married to Andrea Farmery. So by the back door, I've actually, worked out exactly who she is, because I find out from him, he tells me he's married to her. So again, I'm reconstructing families without having to have any contact. Obviously, I've already got a contact with Andrea himself, but without actually having to contact Andrea, I know exactly who she is. However, don't make assumptions. I can't remember exactly who I was looking for. It must be one of the people on the previous page. Yes, when I looked at all these people that person, I think it was Daniel Farmer, said he was friends with, that doesn't mean to say that he's actually related to them, they're in his family, because I know that I know who David Farmery is, because he's a friend of mine, and I know he doesn't fit into that family. So some people called Farmery are just friends with other people called Farmery because of the name. And if anybody went and looked at my personal page, they will see that I'm actually friends with 3 other people called Alan Moorhouse, purely because we've all got the same name. So there's no, not that we are aware, but we don't believe there's any relationship between the 4 of us, but we all just happen to have the same name. So you can't make assumptions, completely on doing reconstruction. Okay, obviously, right at the beginning we said that there were a few people in the room who've already got their pages or groups set up. And probably what I should have done, knowing what the booking attendance list was, I could have gone through and actually picked some specific examples of people in the room, but then I didn't know. I assumed you were all going to DNA, so okay. So Debbie Kennett's got her cruise group. Now, she's actually set it up as a closed group. So there's very limited information that you can actually find out about this one. Now, Anne Cole at the back we had a bit of a conversation about this yesterday. When I search for Duncalf, which is her one name, and she's got both a page and a group. And I think, without putting Anne on the spot, it was partly around the sort of privacy settings and how you can put she felt she could share certain information in her closed group that was if she put it on the page, would be more freely available because of the way you can have different privacy settings. This is the Willsman page. Quite a nice picture there, specifically telling you, it's about their one name study and the DNA project. And because it's a page, they've had to describe themselves in terms of what sort of organisation they are. So they've said that they're a non-profit organisation. Won't pick up the fact she's using the old badge, but old logo. And lastly, maybe appropriately, is the last page. This is Simon Last, who has been to a number of guild conferences in the past. So he's got a page as opposed to a group. That was just, I just thought that was maybe appropriate to have as the last slide in effect. So thank you. Now I thought I was going to well fill the hour and you'd have no time for questions, but hopefully we've left a reasonable amount of time for questions now. Obviously, I can actually give you a copy of the document that sits behind that. Extracted a lot of the information out of that and actually put it into a document. If anybody specifically wants it, but it shows all the, not necessarily my screenshots, but all the step-by-step bits to doing and setting up your group, which I've extracted from what sits behind that link. But if you Google Facebook, how to create a group, it'll take you straight into the Facebook help part, which you must be able to get to from your home page anyway, but I couldn't quite work out how to do that, but I found it through as a Google search. But because that then links in, you'll click on one link and it'll link to another section. I've actually extracted it all out into one document. If anybody particularly wants that and wants to drop me an email, I'll happily send that to you. But that information is there available online to help you if you want to do it. So, any questions?
Hold on a minute.
Yeah, we'll send the microphone round so that every benefit. Be kind to me, please.
It was just that you said, oh, and I can add somebody to the group, but presumably it works in the same way as you put in a friend request and they have to say that they want to be in the group.
No, if you add somebody to the group, they are added in. They would then.
That sounds a bit bad.
I guess so. I mean, I suppose it depends on what relationship you have with the people you're adding. If it's somebody that's one of your friends, you might just add them.
Yeah, but I mean, people might not want to. I wouldn't want to be just added to somebody's random group.
Yeah, that's exactly. So it's your decisions on how you best want to operate it, and you may decide that you will send an email to somebody saying, or a Facebook message saying, "I've got this group. Please come and join," and then let them do it.
But you can obviously find people on Facebook, so you could invite them to join the group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't have to be a friend of yours already to come into your group.
I'd like to know how Facebook knows that you are the administrator. Do you have passwords or anything like that?
No, but because you created the group, you are automatically the administrator.
Because you're linked to your email address or something like that.
Because you're creating the group from within. You're already, when you sign on to Facebook, onto your personal page, then you click from that to create a group. It knows who you are.
Thank you.
Now, in terms of if you set up a group, because you might want to go ahead and practice and set one up, and then think, well, how do I delete it? As long as you delete in order to delete it, you need to remove all the existing members of your group so that only you as the administrator are left. Then you remove yourself from the group so it has no administrator, and Facebook will automatically delete it because it's got no members and no administrator. If you remove yourself as the administrator but leave people in there, the group will happen. You won't be able to do anything about it.
Right, someone.
I'm going to come over to Roger.
What's your success rate in kind of cold calling with inviting people into Facebook groups?
I probably haven't done it as much as I could do in terms of putting in people there that I have no contact with already. Virtually, I don't think anybody that I've added has taken themselves out, but I haven't necessarily gone. I mean, there's way more farmery users on Facebook that I'm not friends with that I haven't yet even tried to add. But it's like one of those things that sits on the back burner a little bit, and the group just ticks over. And I try to keep it sort of fairly interesting and fairly active, but I haven't done perhaps as much work with it that I could do.
It's just regarding your email address. If you've got an existing Facebook page, which I have, it's a different email address, but I'd obviously want people to use the one name organisation email. Can you separate the two, or does it have to all operate through the same email address?
Their interaction with the page, it's all coming through onto your wall or messaging through Facebook, so it's not actually sending you a direct email. So whatever email you use, I don't think makes any difference, because if you're running your page or your group page, if people post onto that, it's all within the Facebook system. It's not outside of Facebook.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you.
It's a short question, but I noticed you found a closed group. I came to one of the seminars a couple of years ago and decided, oh, this is a good idea. I think I'll set up a Facebook group. So I have. I've got a Facebook group. I've not had a single person even look at it, let alone anything else. I suspect that I've made it closed. So in which case, would anybody find it without interest?
It's not. In fact, you've made it closed. It's still visible. It's if you make it secret, it's not visible. So I mean, I don't know. You remember what you called it? Well, if you look on the left-hand side of your homepage, it will show it there. Yeah, maybe.
Can I just say, Alan, you said you hadn't got any files in your group. I've got hundreds in mine. I use it to disseminate my newsletter. They come to my group to pick their newsletter up in a PDF format. And I've got hundreds of transcriptions of documents, of wills, of all sorts. I've even got an Excel spreadsheet of all the Duncalf deaths on there. Because I'm trying to encourage people to, you know, think about use of original documents rather than just being interested parties, which a lot of them are. So that is a really useful feature of the groups.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's almost do as I say, not do as I do, perhaps. But yeah, it's like a lot of these things. You know, it'll always do a lot more than you actually potentially use it for. And our biggest problem is time, I think.
Not a question, it's more of a comment. You pick up dates of birth and dates of wedding anniversaries through Facebook. I had a lovely post put up one day of an Elwick twin who put, "How can I forget my sister's birthday?" But of course I then got their actual date of birth, because even though I picked it up months later, it was dated on the thing. And I've also picked up wedding anniversaries that way.
Yes, I mean, often...
And you said about the obituaries, and of course you often get the dates of death. Sometimes it only mentions when the funeral's going to be, but quite often if they've posted it, or like you've reposted it, you get a date of death. Every little bit helps.
Yes. I mean, often some people will hide their date of birth in terms of what's available within their profile, even the people who are friends with you. But Facebook might send you a message, or you know, I get a message virtually every day saying, you know, today's birthdays of your friends are this, this, and this. You know, so if you're careful enough to actually write them down, you know, on the day, you know that was their date of, you know, the actual date, not necessarily the year, but then you start cross-checking against national registration or whatever. It's amazing what you can find.
Thank you. On a lot of programs, a lot of care goes into hiding information about living people. Facebook seems to have the absolutely opposite ethos. You'd like to comment on that?
I guess that, you know, a lot of the information that on Facebook is people are putting it up there about themselves, so they are already putting it in the public domain. So if something's in the public domain, then it's okay. You know, it's if you start sharing information that you know privately, that's probably a little bit more of a problem. But if it's, you know, if they've already put up a picture of their engagement or whatever, then they've made it available to 1.39 billion people, or however many it was. So sharing it, you know, in another group. If they pick them up, it's picked up their picture. Yeah, it's a fair comment. But they will know, you know, if I've shared it from their page, they will get, you know, they will know from their page that it has been shared. So, you know, it's not been maybe shared without their explicit permission, other than the fact they've put it into the public domain. But they will, you know, if they wanted to, they could see that it has been shared, because they will have got that message to say that, you know, your post was shared to Families group.
I have to say, sorry, we've still got plenty of time. The main use that we've had from the Braund Facebook group is that it does bring your one name study to a completely different age profile than the one, for example, that we've got in this room. And to me, that's the greatest benefit of it. Now I'll carry on with some questions.
Alan, it's more of a comment. Since Facebook went commercial, the fan pages, rather than the groups, do not get sent to everybody who likes the page unless you pay. Oh, so effectively, what happens is that Facebook will show those actual posts only to about 5 to 10% of the people, unless the engagement goes up or you actually pay money. So company-wise, I have to spend quite a lot to actually engage people on behalf of my clients.
Right. That's interesting.
Following on from an earlier question, when you set up your Facebook group, how did you first approach people to be members of that group?
I think because I'd already, started collecting people called Farmery as my Facebook friends. Once I created the group, I just sent, a message to all of those people, just saying, look, the group is now here. Please come and join. And people started to join. And once one person starts to join, sometimes you will find that there are other Farmery relatives who are not necessarily your friends start to join as well, because they see, they'll get a message, I know their brother joined the group, and then they start, people coming that way. So it's just started to work through from that angle.
If I can just ask a supplementary question.
Sure.
I've, in the past, contacted people that have got their own Facebook page and sent them messages and never got replies. Have you had any experience of ways of encouraging people to respond to your inquiries? I mean, there were people that I know are in my one-name study, and I've sent them messages, but I didn't get any answer.
I think, unless you can give them a specific hook to come in and to respond, I think you just, you almost sometimes have to accept that there are, quite rightly, people out there that have no interest in their ancestry or their name, or they may have reasons why they don't want to explore it. It may not even be their birth name. I mean, with the way modern families change and adoption and second families and everything else. And so I think you just have to, respect that not everybody's going to respond, and you just concentrate on those that will. But sometimes you end up finding you get to that person by going through somebody else and another relative of theirs, and sometimes that brings them in anyway. But it's almost like as long as you've got one representative from each family group, then you're getting that representation there.
I'm going to make this the last question, because I'm very much aware we don't actually have an official gap between this session and the next session, and we've all got to change, those of us who wants to move rooms. So last one's yours.
Two things. Firstly, like myself, you have the same problem that the name you're researching is not your own name. So can you suggest any ways of sort of getting over to people that you're trying to be their friend, even though for a surname purpose, even though you don't have the surname? And also, what sorts of things did you first put on your group to sort of suck people in?
Oh, okay, thanks for that. If I'm sending a message almost like cold calling to somebody, I will explain exactly, that my Farmery interest is my great-grandmother. She was born in 1863 at Swallow near Grimsby. And it's a little bit about that I'm then researching, and interested in the name anywhere. In terms of what I first put up, I think it coincided with that year's annual gathering. So I just saw it initially as an extra way of actually publicising that gathering. But I say it was 2008, so I can barely remember what I did a month ago, let alone what I did 7 years ago. But you can scroll back. I mean, some of those early screenshots were from much earlier on stuff that I'd posted. So it's still there. Right back, just have a bit of a long way to scroll, but you can search as well.
Right, well, I'd like to thank you very much again for sending us all off to Facebook to try and exploit all the ins and outs of it, and for opening our eyes to just how useful it can be to use what perhaps some of us think of as a child social media tool to really help us with our one-name study. So can we thank Alan once again, please?
Right, shall we get started? I'm guessing not then. Okay. Just a couple of short hours and you can carry on. Bob, I'm Bob Cumberbatch. I don't think I'm starting early. Hello, Chris. Okay, what I'll be talking to you today about is collaboration, the give and take of your one name study. I'll outline for you today some strategies for giving with the hope of receiving, some techniques and some tools that you can use in your own one name studies to generate ideas, perhaps stories, giving to the audience in the hope of subsequently receiving some information back. And towards the end of the presentation, I'll give you some examples from my own studies of things that I've received, information that I've gained, or knowledge that I've gained through the course of my study by sharing stuff with folks first. So strategies for giving. One of the key things to understand is who your audience is. And I know this is a very difficult question, but in reality, your audience will change over time. So once you start some kind of online presence, for instance, your audience could be small. You're not performing to a hall or to a concert hall or some kind of event where all of your audience are amassing at one time. Time is on your side. So work out who you are sharing stuff or who you are creating information for. And that will greatly help you, because when you plant these little seeds, and I'll come back to that in a second, then folks can find those seeds over time. So as I said, your audience could be small to begin with. We've talked earlier about Facebook and the massive numbers of folks who use Facebook on a regular basis. But don't be intimidated by the audience sizes of Facebook. At the end of the day, you want to reach an audience that's interested in what you have to give or what you have to share with from your own one name studies. One thing to think about, I think sometimes we think of our own one name studies and we may write or produce material that really can only be consumed by other genealogists. So who in your audience is likely to be a genealogist other than yourselves? Now, if you've got a large study, and I know Moorhouse is a big one, he may have more genealogists to call upon. But if you're writing stuff that's genealogically relevant, then you're limiting to whom that information may be consumed for. Publish for everybody else as well, and as often. So in this graphic, perhaps the one person in 10 might be a genealogist. The other 9 people, what on earth could they be looking for? Alan talked in the previous discussion on Facebook about some of the things that he shares that are of interest to other people called farmery. One thing that was pointed out by a chap whose name has completely gone out of my head now. He did a survey a couple of years ago, talked at our conference last year, Dick Eastman, that's it, thank you. He pointed out audiences are getting younger and they want stories, not just pedigrees. So if you're moving to publish stuff, newsletter, online blog, call it what you will, then remember that audiences are getting younger, those interested in family stories in particular, and they do want to know stories about their ancestors, people who've held the surname of interest to them. They do want to know where they fit, so they are interested in pedigrees. They don't just want the pedigrees. They want the interesting stories, anything sort of spicy or unusual. It's also worth thinking about some of the technicalities of searching. Tessa talked about 4 or 5 different search engines. She mentioned Google, she mentioned Bing. What do you think your folks will be looking for? And here I'm talking to named individuals. There's no point in putting a tree, a beautifully created drawing of a tree, if the text naming the individuals is buried inside the image. Search engines can't find and can't index that content. So when someone comes to do a search, and I would argue with most folks searching for family connections, they're going to search for a complete name, like Gray, Doyle, Cumberbatch. That combination of 3 words should make any hits that come back unique. It's very, very important that whatever you publish, there is a text-based use of those 3 terms, especially if it's an image. Okay? So think about what your audience is going to look for, how they're going to find you conducting your study, and the kind of material that you will have and that you're prepared to make available to that audience. So I would plead with you to put more named individuals on your publications so that search engines can find them, so that in due course, when a family member or someone interested in that particular surname or combination of words has got half a sporting chance of finding you. It's worth pointing out that having a website is perhaps not enough these days. For those of you technically aware, you'll have heard of something called search engine optimization. That's a technique where you try to manipulate or try to understand the matching algorithms that Google or Bing use, so that when they find your site, find your article, when they index it, when someone else comes to enter a search, that search engine provides the result back from what you have provided. That's called search engine optimization. It's a recipe for disaster if you spend all of your time trying to understand how the search engines work and how to get your content up there amongst all the matches. What I'm saying is let search engines into your websites, but you need to do something else to promote your online presence. It's not enough to have a website and say, build it and they will come. In reality, building it and they will come is partly true, but you may have to wait a long time. In general, in my opinion, it's recommended to have a web presence and use the other online channels to promote awareness of your website. So use Facebook, use Google+, use Twitter, the other tools that drag an audience to your site. Okay? You do then, in return, need to give your audience some content that they can use. And I think this is the key for me. Plant seeds of knowledge, information, and grow them, harvest them. So I encourage you to have a page, a blog, some kind of online presence for, and it's not necessarily always feasible, but every individual in your ONS, ultimately. So plant these seeds of knowledge, let the internet search engines find them, promote individuals through thematic things that come up, like World War I commemoration. A bit more detail about techniques for giving. This is a technique used widely by journalists. You may have heard of the 5 W's. Yes, there are 6 there. The 6th one is known as wow, or if you know this. So these are the 6 ingredients of a good story. If you can try to, in your online publications, whether it's a Facebook post, a Google Plus post, a newsletter, try to cover as many of these as you possibly can about individuals. So start with perhaps individual number 1 and end up wherever. And I'll run through some of the important aspects of who, what, why, where, and when. And to some extent, how. So who, just to reiterate this point, who is the people in your study? And I'm not here to try and encourage you to have long lists of text-based names of people in your study, although that's a good start if that's the only place you have. Ideally have a story about each individual or groups of individuals or families, but make them discoverable by search engines. So name them and let the search engines discover your site, so that when someone searches for unique combination of forenames and surname that your site stands a chance of being found from all the other stuff out there. Very difficult for me to say with Benedict Cumberbatch, for example, in my study, but I suspect not many people are going to be looking for genealogical information about Benedict Cumberbatch. And this is, once you've named your individuals, then promote them via other channels, maybe Facebook, maybe Twitter, maybe Google+, whichever one of these tools you prefer, Blogger, but then have that as a way back to your preferred online presence. It's almost a little bit like fishing. Put out the bait, see what attracts your fish to your study. The where question. Where did they live? Where did they go? Was there anything significant about the place that they lived? Maybe it's a house, maybe it's a town, village, a hamlet, an area. Was there some occupation, we'll come to that in a second, that was associated with that location? And then with migration, why did they move from one place to another? It's great to record the fact that they've moved from one place to a completely different place. Can you speculate as to why? Why is a difficult question, but we'll come back to that in a second. From an international one-name study point of view, there were gold rushes, for example, in Australia, New Zealand, west coast of the US. So do the migration patterns in your one-name study suggest that folks were off to seek a fortune? Or were they escaping for something? So if you do find in your one-name studies the fact that folks have moved from one place to another, begin to consider and speculate, and I'm encouraging you to speculate, because you are, after all, the experts in your own one-name studies. If you can't guess, then no one can guess, is my point. What did your ancestors do? And if you can, do you know why they did what they did? Sometimes occupations run in families, but then the one person who becomes the first whatever is a story of interest. You know, the true pioneers. So back to this question of why. Difficult question. It's something that's drummed out of us as kids, not to continue to ask the question why. But I'm trying to reintroduce this concept back to your stories. So you can help explain why someone did what they did for their whole life, why someone lived in one particular place for their whole lives, or why someone's moved from one place to another. For me, it helps me to consider two options. Was there a push factor? Was there some pain they were escaping from? Were they moving away from? So an example from my own study, family moved from Barbados, 1852, I think it was, to England. The lady took her two sons to England because cholera had killed her husband and two children. Another family moved from England to New Zealand, 1883, I think it was, because he lost two daughters to measles within 2 or 3 days. I suspected it was enough to get him on the boat and away from England. Did check with guild member down in New Zealand, Michelle Patient. She said he definitely was not part of the gold rush. The gold rush had happened and was largely over. So consider the push factors. Were there some factor or factors that made folks leave somewhere for a reason? Or was there a pull factor? Were they going to some place or something that potentially offered them an opportunity for something different that they particularly wanted? Human beings generally like balance and won't typically flit around without a good reason. So consider whether there was a push factor, pull factor, whether there was some pain or some gain. Tools for giving. I'm not going to go through all the tools here. That's what this conference is all about. But consider a website. I mean, you don't typically have to to use a lot of effort these days. It's certainly not necessarily expensive, and I believe, and I don't really want to steal his thunder, but I think you'll see a website being set up in a demonstration tomorrow afternoon. Consider social. Social, I'm just talking here about Facebook, any kind of thing that comes along that allows you to reach an audience with some content or some material that you potentially want to share with that audience. Blogs, again, use one of these as your preferred mechanism and have the audience come to you when it suits them. Don't overlook books. I don't think I have it with me, but I encourage you to have a look at the Fanthorpe book. It's immense. I mean, if we found one of these books in our own study in terms of what's been done before, we'd be ecstatic. Consider also groups, meetings. Some of you are active in family history societies or local area groups. Consider also the fact that whilst you have folks in a particular area or in a particular occupation, look for other groups that share similar interests. If they're not necessarily interested in your name, you'll find other experts that are knowledgeable about an area and or an occupation. Don't overlook newsletters. And I think you know that I do like a bit of technology. I have one reader for my newsletter that I have to publish manually because she's not on the interweb thingy. And Noreen, well, you never see this, but she absolutely laps up everything I send to her. I sent her a 20-page newsletter. I thought that would keep her busy. Next day she rang to say, when's the next? Usability. I touched on this earlier about what you're publishing to some extent for your audience and why. I would argue that raw data such as births, baptisms, marriages, deaths, burials, all that kind of stuff might be of interest to other genealogists, but I don't think it's of much interest to most folks who might be interested in your content, because one of the fundamental points might lead them to believe, here's the raw data, you go figure out where you fit. What they're looking for, I think to a large extent, are stories, lighter biographies, heavy biographies, whatever you can produce, certain galleries of images, materials, artifacts, some kind of online museum. And I think this morning's panel session gave you an example of how we have become, for want of a better word, museum curators for our own one-name studies and all the bits and pieces that we pick up, the information, photographs or whatever. I think it's worth sharing origins and meanings. It might seem a bit dry, but I've had more comments than any other I can think of about what my surname means, and folks in the US not having a clue what it meant other than it being a source of ridicule as a school child. And distribution. To some extent, distribution is useful because it gives folks a sense of where a name maybe has come from and where a name has gone to. If you can help them understand why, then fantastic. But the point here is to make your stuff as readily consumable by everybody. If someone does want to challenge you, let's assume for the sake of argument, you've decided the reason that family A went from here to here was because of this. If someone knows that that hypothesis is wrong, they're going to tell you. And if they tell you, you're going to ask them for evidence, and if you're lucky, you might get it. But it's one way of evoking a response from a person who might not otherwise engage. If you make a wrong assumption, credit to Rowan for this. I had one particular person in my study who was awarded the military medal. And there was something a little bit odd about this character. I couldn't quite work out what it was at the time. But nonetheless, he'd been awarded the military medal. I spoke to the curator of the RAF Museum at Hendon, and he said, basically, a lot of people that win medals, gallantry medals, are not necessarily always mentally stable. You can imagine what it's going to take to jump out and run in front of a machine gun to get your gallantry medal. Anything but posthumously, then you'll get some idea that some of these folks perhaps did it a little bit too willingly. That said, I had one character that perhaps fitted that category quite well. Just about to write up his story, and I found that he became divorced because he raped another woman. So was he right going into the war, mentally, or did the war potentially cause what he became? Reasonable doubt for me. I honestly, to this day, don't know. Books about using the internet, and particularly for you as website creators, this is an absolutely fantastic book, very, very well written, and it's called Don't Make Me Think. And if you've ever been to a website and it's stuffed full of information, you think, oh, no, close the window, move on to somewhere else, then this book is the book that will help you making that mistake for yourself. It can be very easy to hose data at a website, hose menus, hose URLs. But in reality, I'm sad to say this, but the way the vast majority of people use the internet and use a website, and I'll ask you to consider whether you fit into this category. If you go to a new website, are you reading it like you would read a newspaper? Maybe scan from cover to cover, looking for the headlines that take interest, then reading in detail if you think it's worth it, what's in those stories. Well, that's how everybody uses the internet. So you can put together pages and pages and pages of stuff that you pore over to be grammatically correct, and someone's read the headline and moved on. So this is you might not like what it says, but it gives you an insight into how folks use the internet. Receiving, this like preaching to the choir, but treat what you receive with some sensitivity. Just because some information or a photograph has been shared with you, do respect the privacy of the owner. You're not necessarily duty-bound as journalists to report everything you receive. That's up to you. It's incredibly important, if you want folks to share stuff with you, for you to be trustworthy. And if someone shares something with you which you use, and they don't like the way you've used it, you can bet your bottom dollar that they will not share anything with you ever again. So treat the material as you would treat it. I've had guild members contact me and say, I'm not sure I want to share with you some family photos where there's been overlap between ONSs, and that's entirely up to them. I'm always grateful to receive what I get. So, last few minutes or so, some examples from my own study. Lincolnshire, I probably wouldn't have got most of this stuff without collaborating with the folks that were researching this particular story. Some of you will have read the article in the journal. It's about, for me, it's about this guy, Keough Cumberbatch, who was a bomb aimer on a Lancaster that crashed in 1943. The significance in terms of what I received was photographs from, I was able to get photographs from each of the family members to put together a bit of a biography on all of the crewmen and the positions and roles that they fulfilled. Perhaps the saddest story here is this chap here, Dougie Davies. He was the only survivor of the crash. He was ejected when this Lancaster bomber crashed. It took off from not too far from here, at Grimsby, and crashed on the borders of Leicester and Nottinghamshire, having dropped a cargo of mines near on the coast of France, and all the crewmen except for Dougie Davies was killed. He survived and went through something called survivor syndrome. He didn't understand why he survived, and had medical problems as a result of surviving this accident. I was almost drummed out of the RAF for it, but fortunately a squadron leader came to his aid and put him into gunnery training. But a couple of things that I was able to discover by sharing these photographs with a chap that I was introduced to by Jackie, who's probably in the other room, Peter Devitt at the RAF Museum at Hendon. I asked him about this photograph. Top left, 5 crewmen, 2 Canadians, 1 from Barbados and 2 Brits. I wanted to know how that Wellington bomber crew were put together, because those 5 later became the core of the Lancaster bomber crew. What he told me was the crews basically self-selected themselves. I actually didn't know that. I wanted to know whether the black guy was foisted upon the white team, so to speak. But it wasn't like that. The RAF seemed to have been quite open-minded. They avoided the colour bar thing and allowed crewmen to select themselves, put themselves into team. If a captain, a pilot captain cannot choose his own team, then perhaps he's not worthy of being a captain in the first place. The second piece of intelligence I learnt was from this picture. It was thought to be, speculated to be, the last photograph of the crew alive. Wasn't sure we could really prove it. They were based here at Lincolnshire. There wasn't enough detail in the background to know for certain. But nonetheless, Peter Devitt looked at this photograph and said, oh, they're not dressed for altitude flying. Okay, how can you tell that? He said, oh, with the boots and the stuff they're wearing. The key thing, these guys were on the mine laying mission. So they were in the final days of training for laying mines. Well, mine laying in the early 1943s were typically dropped at altitudes of a few hundred feet tops. So these guys were actively in training for laying these mines. Fortunate enough to find actual pictures of the Lancaster. You can see the flight, or the serial number of the plane, ED549, but it hasn't yet received its 100 squadron markings. So likely to have been shored off the production line prior to delivery to Lincoln. Great Oil's sister, she was in her 90s when she attended the service put together by the villagers of Plunger in Nottinghamshire. And sadly, she died last year, but I was able to interview her shortly after the memorial service. And she told me that he was a talented pianist and cricketer. I would never have been able to research those pieces of information without sitting down with her and literally doing an interview. Someone mentioned earlier smartphones and how useful they can be. Well, most of these things have very, very good cameras, very good video recorders, or at least a voice recorder that you can turn to your own aid if you get an opportunity for an impromptu interview with anyone. He was that talented as a pianist that in the ship ride from the Barbados to the UK, prior to signing up for after volunteering for the RAF, but before joining it formally in the UK, he played the piano every night on the liner. Someone mentioned about eBay. I've had a standing search on eBay for some time. So you can set up eBay to search for a term, and I put in most of my variants. And every now and again, you get lucky. So here, this is the original spelling of my surname, Gunner George Cumberbatch of the Royal Field Artillery. And this is his trio of medals. I don't know why these things are put up for sale, how they come to be sold, but occasionally and sadly, they do. ship and a watchmaker, barometer maker called Edward Stephen Cumberbatch. These things pop up. I'm not necessarily encouraging you to hose all your money at eBay, but sometimes the images are of sufficiently good quality that you can grab the images, store them away, and have some indication that these mementos are around. Henry Cumberbatch shop front in Northampton. I mentioned in 1883 this ship, the SS Ionic. It was the first steamer, I think, that travelled between the UK and New Zealand and cut the journey time to, I think I remember, 49 days or something like that. And this was the ship that carried this Cumberbatch from the UK to New Zealand. He just seemed to up and go. His wife had just given birth to a young child and travelled, let's say, economy, cattle class between the UK and New Zealand. And I just felt I had to know why he left. Of course, I'd seen 2 deaths in his family through free BMD, and I just decided to apply for those certificates to see if that would reveal the reason. And sure enough, within a few days, they both died of the measles. This picture down here, something that was recently put on eBay. The significance, other than its picture of a yet to be identified church, probably in the Nottingham area, is it was written or signed by a W.T. Cumberbatch in 1914. This lad was killed in World War I. William Thomas. I think I know where the church is, but can't be sure. So if anyone in Nottingham says, or knows Nottingham, recognises that church and says, yay, I know what it is, then please let me know. I'd love to know. I was lucky enough to be invited into to see some personal collections of portraits, because the holders of these portraits had no idea who the individual sitters were. So after photographing this and looking on the back and some deductive work, I was able to work out who this particular chap was, and another photograph was of his wife. And this, it just so happens that this guy just happens to be a bit of a hero of mine. He's a chap called Robert William Cumberbatch. His father was a prolific sugar plantation owner with many, many hundreds of sugar plantation slaves in Barbados. This guy, born in England, decided that he would join the Foreign Office, for want of a better word. British government, worked in Istanbul, and he would house, as a British diplomat, runaway slaves. So when slavery was abolished in the British colonies, it was continued in North Africa and the Ottoman Empire, and this guy was causing a lot of problems by being a very active slave hunter or slaver capturer, if that makes sense. This guy, fascinating story. He was one of the 2 kids that, or the painter of this painting was one of the 2 kids who was taken from Barbados to England. He was trained as a lawyer, and one of the sentences, I can't remember which one, his occupation has been put down as an artist. And I remember thinking, artist, he had a little bit of money, perhaps more money than sense, and nonetheless, when I saw this is actually a pencil sketch. I was just blown away with the incredible detail, and I thought that, for me, that is art. So he was clearly a gifted artist, and he didn't really need to work, although his mother probably didn't approve. So she made her second son the executor of her will. This particular chap called Lawrence Henry Cumberbatch. He was the deputy surveyor of the New Forest, a job that he took, I think, in his early 20s, and I think by 1880, early 1880s, he was pretty much dead by overexertion. And this is one of the paintings he painted whilst recovering from basically having a breakdown. Now, I wouldn't have seen that, or that. That is on display at the New Forest Museum, so that would have been easy to get. But that's in a personal collection, that's in a personal collection, that's in a personal collection. Can't really use this stuff on the web, so to speak, but folks are fine for me to use them here. And to some extent, almost last. I remember what the last one is now. This is Noreen, sorry for that. This is Noreen, the lady that I was directing my comment to. She's the other genealogist in the Cumberbatch one-name study. I don't have many to call upon. But we compared trees many years ago, and she shared with me a family Bible that she has. Conveniently, it came into her hands, but I'd never seen a Cumberbatch family Bible before. But this, the ancestors here were 6 brothers, and all who had 4 names that all began with the letter E, and they were biblical. Part of the funny story here is that they were originally delivered to me as there were 7 brothers with 4 names beginning with the letter E, and before long I was believing this, this legend. I'd put together the family tree, and just one day I decided to count the brothers. There's only 6 of them. So I went back to Noreen and spoke to her and said, why are there 7? Can you name the 7? And she could only ever name the 6. So somehow this 6 brothers had become 7. But her and her husband, husband's been dead for some time, in the 1970s, they were active genealogists, and it sounds like they were quite technically savvy. They were using these kind of open reel tapes. How many of you have these? Yeah, right. You need to get something done about moving this stuff onto some other medium. If you have chosen tape recordings, or if you use tape recordings to preserve previous memories, it's absolutely same thing with films, with DVD. Sorry, not DVDs. With VHS recordings, anything like that, anything on a tape cassette, you need to get them moved onto some other media, because you need a player that is capable of playing whatever recordings you have, so that then you can re-record it digitally. Okay. As time goes on, the availability of these recorders becomes less and less. But even worse, stuff can happen to that brown thing. Depending on the quality of the tape thingy, this brown thingy, the little particles that store magnetism can begin to fade over time. The point here, this lady gave me 10 reels of tape. I was able to find a tape recorder, play them back. I managed to recover almost all of them, but there was one where the tape recording was just so naturally faded that it was unusable and just had to be thrown away. So if you've got anything on tape, begin to consider moving it to some other medium. Worst possible case, as time goes on, the actual substructure of this material can begin to separate. And then you're looking at a very expensive restoration, if you're lucky to recover anything on that material. But then you can play it, and I was able to recover, I think it was 6 or 7 really good interviews, one-to-one that Noreen and her husband conducted with folks called Cumberbatch. And I was able to give to a relative a digital recording of an ancestor of hers. So fantastic stuff. And this is Dennis, a cousin of Noreen. He's a chirpy old fella. And last and by no means least, a piece of music. All I need now is someone who can play the piano to play it for me. Again, Noreen shared this with me. It's this guy's father who composed this particular waltz, and it only covers something like 5 or 6 pages. So in summary, there have been recent, I'm talking since the year 2000 or so, studies, medical studies conducted into what's called generativity, making stuff, creating stuff, generating stuff, and the benefits of hobbies like genealogy and family history. And to spare you the research that typically concludes with more and more community social care services need to consider introducing genealogy or family history into the day-to-day activities of folks who are elderly, because it's good for your health and well-being. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Right. Thank you.
Any questions?
Well, it isn't so much a question as to reiterate, as a former museum curator, I do feel that museums and their objects are not well used by family historians. Now, most museums have got their collections onto databases, so they should be able to give you the names of people who have given material to the museum, and also if they have anything with the names of people on it. And I do urge you all to sort of think about this. I know this might be a bit hit and miss, but I've just written a book on Scottish samplers in which I have used the names of the girls and been able to identify a lot of them. So, you know, these are now all out of the families, so it's a shame because samplers are very much collected by people. But if you have a sampler in your family, please, please, please keep it.
That's a fantastic point, and I love visiting the museums. And to some extent, the smaller the better. Smaller in terms of perhaps having an uncatalogued collection. I was up with my wife in a very small museum called the Aikdale Heritage Centre. It's a long story, but they wheeled out a box of material for a chap called Isaac William Cumberbatch, and there was a stash of black and white photographs this deep. It had been passed down in the family. He died. His wife's, I think, natural son found it in a loft, decided I'd give it to the Aikdale Heritage rather than throwing it in the bin, much to my luck. But I didn't even know it was in this museum until I got in touch with them electronically initially, you know, to make sure it was fine to come along. We had hoped to find something on the Brandon side in Newcastle on the line, but no, how come this box? And I was gone. I was thumbing through this stuff. He ended up being chairman of the West Midlands National Coal Board. So he had lots and lots of photographic photo shoot opportunities, including lots of speech notes that he'd handwritten or had been typed up for him subsequently that he'd used to deliver to local schools, education, and universities to encourage folks to get into mining. But point very well made. Yeah, I mean, using what's available in local museums or museums up and down the country, I think it's commendable that more and more museums are putting their catalogues online so that you've got a chance of finding them. And I think it's access to archives that's available by the National Archives. There's a tremendous, but there's still stuff out there, particularly at smaller museums. There was one, I don't think it was here. We went to visit a small military museum, one of these museums that dig aircraft, crashed aircraft out of the ground. And I managed to find some stuff on a Mr. Howes. And I had no idea what to do with it.
Well, it was just on that point about finding things that for museums, it can be quite difficult to find things. They're not always so organised. But record offices, I mean, you put a name in, you'd expect it to come up. But they have sort of collections under a completely different name. And it's just pot luck when you sort of search inside what you might find. We just found a diary. Well, anyway, you would have never in a million years found it. But it was just sitting in this box labelled something else.
Yeah, quite. I completely agree. I mean, I found a diary in a local archives, and I think it was these two ladies that, who do you think you are? This guy had lost a son, 1692, his first son, he'd named Roger after himself, and he'd written, Roger died this morning, didn't get him baptised, or something like that. And I just remember thinking, it was such a cold thing to write. There just didn't seem to be any emotion, but maybe that's the way men back then wrote in their diaries. I assume that maybe they were all as hard as nails back then, but I suspect, and these two ladies proved me wrong, they're not.
I came across an interesting wartime story where some pilots from two different crashed aircraft were smuggled out of an Italian village, and talk about sort of giving as well as guessing. I wanted to sort of out of interest trace the story of the aircraft, because it was a very good description of when and where. I came across months ago a database apparently that listed in detail crashed aircraft during the war, but I can't remember where it was. I wondered if anyone in the room would know where I can find a place to look this up.
I would suggest RAF Hendon. There's a book that's been published on. Are we talking World War II?
Yeah, I thought it was National Archives or something else maybe, or I don't know, Air Force Archives.
RAF Museum at Hendon has crash records, crash cards, I believe, unless anyone knows any different about what's available at National Archives. I know the RAF Museum at Hendon has the crash cards, but I don't know if they're originals or what. You do need to make an appointment to get in there. Let's see another question.
You mentioned, Bob, that you looked on eBay for various things.
Yeah.
Do you just rely on the photographs, or have you been tempted to buy the various things?
No, I don't buy them. No. What kind of question is that? I thought you were a mate as well.
Am I a plant or what?
Sometimes I ask permission before. Sometimes I don't. It depends on the cost. And of course, you can never tell because everything starts off. It's only 50p, but ends up being something a bit different.
Look, sorry, Bob.
I'll have a lager, thanks, Cliff.
And a chaser.
Any other comments, thoughts?
I think I think you all agree it's an absolutely excellent session. Bob's always a fabulous speaker, and I hope you enjoy it. And give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
I'll just remind you all yet again that if anyone still wants to order wine, I'm